Hey, what's going on, guys? Berserk 383 is finally out, and let's talk about it. So to start off the chapter, we got this little blurb here. Guts abandoned all his former aspirations and seemingly invited Roxas's dagger into his heart. Bearing the cursed brand and cast out from the city, he finds himself on sacred ground, in the holy place reserved only for the Kushan High Priest. He is interred in a stupa. Is this how Guts meets his end? So yeah, we see the chapter, we see the volume cover here. Well, this is the volume cover for volume, was it 42 or 43? But they're using it for the chapter cover here. Oh, it says it right there, volume 43, right on the cover. It's a really nice image. I really like the blues here, and Guts looks really cool. So yeah, it's really cool stuff. Now, this is a really interesting chapter. Now, I like what's going on from a narrative perspective. From a drawing perspective, there's some interesting choices. We'll get to that when we actually see the images, but yeah, let's actually get into it. Now, in addition to that, there's not a lot of dialogue in this chapter as well. Like, there's just a lot of contemplation. Now, I feel like we're supposed to read some of the context clues here and sort of interpret what's going on, and I think I kind of have an idea of that. So it says, he faces the dark, and we see Guts just kind of looking in this dark room, and yeah, it's just all blackness. Nothing else is really going on at this point. He then reaches his arm forward and sort of has an interesting moment here where, like, he loses his balance and he trips. Now, he falls onto the ground, and we see that he stubbed his toe. He looks like he's in some pain at this point. Who would have thought it, you know? Years worth of fighting apostles and the god hands, and Guts is taken out by a stubbed toe. Look at that, guys. You know, that's all it took. That's all Griffith had to do this entire time. That's all Zod had to do this entire time. But anyway, moving on. So anyway, Guts is crawling forward, and he's kind of in this interesting structure here. It's not quite a circle. It's almost looks like an apple, if you will. And it looks kind of veiny in the middle as well, almost like little cracks in the ground. And Guts is panting, you know, he's looking around, and again, he's in complete darkness. Now, we get to our first moment here where I'm not a big fan of the art. The way that they decided to draw Guts is just really weird looking. I hate to say it, but he looks really derpy in this panel. And we've seen panels like this before, you know. Mira has drawn stuff of Guts really close up. The most notable one that I remember was during the reincarnation ceremony where Griffith was given his new physical body, and it sort of like pans over to Guts, and it's like a direct shot on his face as the light is kind of bathing over his body. And that's a fantastic image, but this one right here, guys, I don't know, I'm just not feeling it. The eyebrows look too big, the nose looks really weird, the lips are like humongous. He just looks really derpy. And like there's no sharpness to his face as well. He just kind of looks like blocky almost. He almost looks like a Minecraft character. It's just like, guys, like, and Studio Gaga has moments of brilliance. They have moments where the characters look absolutely fantastic. You know, I have noticed something that, like, anytime that they draw Griffith, he looks amazing. I mean, that guy is like, he's just out of this world. It's just like, wow, like, how does he look so good? And then Guts, there's these moments where it's like, man, what the heck are they doing? Like, they really dropped the ball here. And, you know, newsflash, Guts is kind of the main guy. You know, he's the main guy of the whole story. Like, if you want to draw anyone right, it's that guy right there. So, yeah, I don't know what they were doing here. But anyway, enough about that. Moving forward, like I said, guys, not a lot of dialogue. It's just kind of a lot of contemplation. So, you know, Guts is a little confused right now. He's looking around. He kind of lies his head on the ground, and then he's lying on his back looking up at the ceiling. And now, this is a really interesting moment here because he looks up at the ceiling and, you know, we see this circular structure and it looks like a dark substance is starting to cover it. And as soon as I saw this, I was like, feels kind of like an eclipse. Then we see his eye, and then we see these dark amorphous spirits. The same dark spirits that were terrorizing Elfhelm. They were gnawing at the people. They were ripping away their flesh and their bone and their blood and leaving nothing left but skeleton. It's the same ones that we saw at Albion as well, and it's the same ones in which I think Hanar used to power Guts' armor. You know, we've talked about that numerous times in other videos. So it is very interesting that we're seeing them inside of this stupa, this holy place for the Kushans. Now, what does this exactly entail? Does this mean that Guts is going to go through some sort of apostle-like transformation? Is he going to make some sort of a pact with these amorphous spirits and sort of use them for his own will? You know, we don't exactly know at the moment, but then we go outside of the stupa and we go to Daiba and Salat. Now, like, remember how weird and derpy Guts looked in that last panel? Look at how good Salat and Daiba look in these panels. It's like, how come these guys look good and Guts looks kind of like, I don't know. It's just a weird thing. It's like, you took the time on these panels. How come you couldn't do it with Guts? Now, Salat is wondering what's going on inside of the stupa, and Daiba's like, that is a peculiar sight. Its inside and outside are strongly disconnected. Even my arts cannot easily pierce the veil. Now, that's very interesting right there, because we got several circumstances where this has happened throughout the Berserk universe. Something that's going on inside is strongly disconnected from what's going on outside. It sounds very much like an eclipse. You know, like when the Count activated the Bailet, we see this gigantic tornado that sort of walls everyone off, and everything that's going inside is very strange and fantastical and mystical, and time is stopping in a sense. Same thing happened with the eclipse in Griffith, that we've seen this time and time again. So they are alluding to the fact here that what is happening inside of the stupa is probably happening, at its own pace. It's very fantastical, it's very mystical, and it's, time is probably stopping for Guts. What might feel like hours for him is probably only minutes on the outside. And then Daiba says, of course, within is a void. What madness might its darkness bring forth? So again, this is a very interesting section here, and I think there's an interesting parallel between what happened with Guts and Casca. Once we get to that panel, I'll explain that. And then Daiba says something very interesting here, very Nietzschean in a way, something that, Mira would do time and time again. He would just kind of layer in some of Nietzsche's quotes and ideas, and it seems like Studio Gaga is taking reference from that. Daiba's like, in darkness, without sight, without sound, there's but one thing to do. There's naught to gaze into but self. Now, it seems like this is a self-reflection process that only Guts can do on his own. Now, when we get to the next panel, we see Guts lying on the floor again. He's kind of clutching at his chest, and in the room itself, it looks like nothing is going on. It just looks like an ordinary room. But from Guts' perspective, he's seeing a very different sight. He's seeing the dark amorphous spirits all over him. They're consuming his body at this point. And definitely alluding to the fact that he's allowed the darkness to consume his life. And he's been driven by hatred. And that hatred has sort of shaped him into a person that he doesn't necessarily want to become. And that hatred in a way is destroying him. So once he starts to reach out of the hatred, once he reaches out of the blackness, he sort of sees this light off in the distance. And we almost see like the dark amorphous spirits like sort of being repelled from his body when he sees this light. So it's almost an indication to me that like he's got to relinquish some of the dark ways that he's sort of embraced over the past couple of years. Maybe that even means the Berserker armor itself. Maybe it's just too dangerous at this point, and he's pushed it to its absolute limits. I mean, we know what happens when you go 100% with the Berserker armor. You end up like the Skull Knight. You end up like a skeleton. So, it feels like he's got to get rid of that at some point. And then he looks up, and this is where I see the parallel between Casca and Guts. When Guts looks up, he sees Griffith and Casca in their Band of the Hawk regalia. Now, this is really interesting because Casca when she was sort of in her childlike state, when she was a mentally broken person, she had to go into a dreamscape where Shirka and Farnese had to sort of save her in a sense. They had to go through every moment of her past and sort of had to dig up all the good moments and all the bad moments and sort of face them head on. You know, she couldn't hide from what was real anymore. And by embracing that, well, she didn't fully embrace it, but embracing it more than she ever had, she was able to heal as a person. She was able to talk again, and she was able to act like her normal self again. In a way, Guts has sort of gone through a similar process where he felt like his sword betrayed him, and he sort of went through the same funk where he wasn't the same person anymore, and it feels like he has to go through a similar metamorphosis where he has to go through the various moments of his past and sort of embrace them. Yes, he hates Griffith for what he did to Casca, but at the same time, Griffith gave him hope and friendship and a place he could call his home. And, the whole reason that he met Gaston and Corcus and Pippin and Casca and Griffith was because of him, was because Griffith gave him a chance. And yes, things definitely ended very badly. I mean, let's not brush that aside. But I think in a way, Guts is almost gonna have to find a method in which maybe he can forgive Griffith and maybe just move beyond that in a way. I know it sounds kind of corny, but that's kind of what Casca did almost. You know, like she kind of... she took everything from her past and sort of faced it head on and was able to move past it. And I think, Guts has been stuck in this rut for, 4 years now where he's only been bent on vengeance. So I think if he can find a way where he can ameliorate everything that's happened in his life, he can become a stronger person because of it. He can learn that, hey, maybe darkness is not the way. Maybe I need to cultivate powers of light, much like the mages do, much like Shirka does with her magic. So that will be very interesting to see how that plays out. And I will say, guys, like, as bad as Guts looked in that previous panel, look at this panel of Casca and Griffith. I mean, this is utterly fantastic. This is right up there with the stuff that Mira's done. So it's like, I don't understand how it can look so good in one panel and so bad in another. It's just so weird. But then, in the next panel, it's juxtaposed with Griffith taking away Casca. And that sort of reinforces the fact here that as we see Guts sinking into the water, that he's going to have to go deep within his psyche, just like Casca did, to sort of figure everything out, to sort of take it all in stride and sort of figure out who he is as a person and who he wants to be as a person. Now again, he's going deep within the water, deep within the abyss, and he almost goes into some sort of a clam here, and they say, swallowed by the black, what will Guts see as he sinks ever deeper? And that's the end of that chapter, guys. So I feel like I explained everything fairly well in terms of my thoughts during each panel. Definitely going to be an interesting set of chapters here. I don't know exactly what's going to happen to Guts, but I think it's going to be for the better. I think Guts is going to come out, and he's going to be a better person because of this. I don't think he's going to lose that drive, but I think he's going to find a better way to harness it. He's not going to be so much driven by hatred anymore. He's going to find a way to... fight for himself, like in that time period when he left the Band of the Hawk, when he was fighting Griffith, on that snowy hill, he fought for himself. He fought clear-minded, and that was one of the strongest versions of Guts that we've ever seen. And I think if he can sort of get back to that, to be a calm, level-headed person, he's probably going to be a stronger warrior because of it. So, interesting chapter, guys. Not a lot of dialogue, but definitely a lot of interesting stuff happened. So, we'll leave it there for now. Guys, we're almost at 100,000 subscribers, so if you can get me over that hump, that would be absolutely amazing. And if you could check out my Twitter as well, I got some cool Berserk cards on there. That would be really fantastic. But anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you later.